software. After 18 years of military service and a decade of leading talent acquisition, he has become one of the most trusted voices in helping service members transition into tech careers. So this is our first time talking, AJ, so it's nice to meet you. I'm excited to have you here. Can we get started about talking about your military career and how your transition went?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I joined in 2000, shortly after high school, uh, in the Army as an infantryman. Um, Went to the 173rd over in Vicenza, Italy. Did a tour in Iraq and then Afghanistan. Coming back from my tour in Afghanistan, I was actually selected, of all things, as an infantry guy to become a recruiter, and I was like, no, that is not for me. Never going to do it. Luckily enough, was able to get out of those orders, but got selected to help initiate at that time the height of Iraq and Afghanistan. A lot of convoys being attacked and stuff, so they were looking for instructors to initiate a convoy training program. So I was selected to implement and lead that. Um, and I felt like somebody at the Department of the Army had it out for me because exactly 1 year later they were like, "Well, guess what? That recruiting thing is really your calling." And I was like, "No, it's not." Went kicking and screaming again, and made it through recruiting school. Yeah, despite my best efforts to be like, "This is not for me." And was an Army recruiter in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. That was a lot of fun. Thanks, Marines, for those 4 years. I was actually very successful and did really well as a top recruiter in the Southeast 4 years in a row, and actually was selected to be station commander there above my peers and stuff, but just never really healed for some wounds and things, injuries from Iraq and Afghanistan, and was medically uh, med boarded out. Tried to get into tech myself, because everyone tells you to get into tech. I went through all those CompTIA trainings and got my certifications and stuff. It just wasn't liking it, and probably like most of you, wasn't getting the responses when I was applying to jobs and stuff. And someone reached out to me about the opportunities in recruiting, which again, I was like, not a chance after the nightmare of the 4 years I did in the Army. And they were like, hey, civilian recruiting is a lot different than Army recruiting. So they talked me into that. I did defense contracting recruiting when I first got out, and then did some staffing. And then I've been in the civilian world since. Most notably, I was the Southeast non exempt senior recruiter manager with US Foods. Um, and then I did a short senior recruiting role on a contract for Black Rifle Coffee Company. And then currently I am the director of recruiting for Services Software. We operate as a nonprofit third party skill bridge to help transitioning veterans. So that's, the exciting version.
Yeah. So when did the switch happen? I'm curious. You started off and kept hating recruiting. Where was the switch?
Well,
You decided to stick with
right.
it.
Well, right. I'm talking to a group of veterans, right? Like we all like blame our recruiter, but in reality, like we knew we were joining, most of us, before we went in the office. And we all say things like, "Oh man, my recruiter lied to me," or whatever. Maybe they did, um, but I know me personally, mine didn't, and I kind of took that as a challenge. I was like, I'm not going to be that one. I'm gonna change the stigma of recruiters, and I'm really going to care, and I'm gonna, I think sometimes with recruiters, we say they lied to us, but it's like, well, or did we ask the right questions? And I made sure to be very thorough and cover things. And there were kids that I was like, look, you're getting good grades and you have cause money. You don't need the military. There were other kids where I was like, you need to get out of town. So I really wanted to change the stigma. And I'm also just, if you're going to make me be a recruiter, I'm going to show you and I'm going to do a really good job at it. And so that's how that came. And then in the civilian world, kind of similar. Like it's quite different. So mm, uh, really wanted to just kind of it's interesting to me. On the civilian side, I feel like you're uh, kind of the gatekeeper.
Mhm.
If a bad hire can really harm a company, a great hire can really help a company. And then uh, from this veteran side, like I had an awful transition. I don't blame anyone else. It was just the circumstances and the time where I was at in my life.
Mhm.
And if there's things that I can do through my individual military transition and then the 13 plus years that I've been out, anything I can do to help other veterans and make their transition, even though mine was horrible, if I can make theirs a little bit better, that it makes it worth it to me in the end. So that's kind of a passion I have when it comes to recruiting.
Yeah, I really love that. You talked on your, like you just said, you talked on your LinkedIn about individualized and not cookie cutter transitions. Can you tell us more kind of about what that means?
I think right off the bat, um, how many, right, as veterans, when we're getting out, typically our chain of command is where we're getting our advice. But then it's like, wait a minute, how many times have you transitioned out of the military? Most of them not. You're like, you're going to tell me what to do and you never got out yet. And then we don't know what we don't know. When I got approached about recruiting outside of, coming out of the military, I honestly was like, wait a minute, you don't have like help wanted signs up and people don't show up with a resume, or like people don't read the paper drinking coffee and looking at help wanted signs and are like, or, help wanted ads and are like, no, it's not quite like that anymore. And I say all that to say, we don't know what we don't know. What, not just from the standpoint about the military, or excuse me, the civilian world and what's out there for us, but first and foremost, it doesn't matter if you've done 2 years in the military or if you did a 40 years career. This is very mission oriented career path, the military. It doesn't matter if you're on the front lines, it doesn't matter what branch you're in, it doesn't matter if you're in support. From the moment you walk into that recruiting office, you're part of a team. It's very mission oriented. They're telling you when you go to MEPS, they're telling you what to do in the physical, all the way to the last day you get out. You're sacrificing a lot of the me for the we. So as veterans, a lot of times when we're getting out, again, we don't know what's available to us. We don't know a lot about the civilian world, and we've kind of lost a little bit of ourselves. Like, what am I going to want to do every? Do I want to get up and work at a computer? Do I want to do manual labor? So there's a lot of questions that need to be asked, and sometimes, again, veterans, we don't know the answer to the question because we don't even know that's a question, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of peeling back that layers for each individual veteran.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I think one of the biggest struggles that a bunch of veterans have is translating their military service to that civilian career. How did you get over that? And then how do you help other people with that as a recruiter now?
I went through when I was getting out, I was trying to do as much as I could. There's a lot more programs such as Seven Eagle Services Software, all these other amazing programs that are out there.
Mhm.
But I went to all those certification classes and things like that. And what I learned, and now what I really know, is numbers, any kind of data. So instead of saying I was in charge, I led an infantry squad of 8 people. Okay, well, like, you know, how much how much equipment did you manage? What was the value of that equipment? What, and then also if there's numbers you can put by, an improvement. Hey, increased, you know, PT scores or efficiency, anything like that. And I always tell people if there's any kind of numbers that you can put to anything, that's always great. And then too, like, it might sound like a cheat, but any AI, whether it's obviously everyone knows ChatGPT or like I think it's Gemini with Google, like there you can always throw it in ChatGPT. There's a lot of websites that will help you. But the number one thing is data and information,
Mhm.
that can correspond. Recruiters look at resumes for anywhere from like 7 to 10 seconds. I need to be able to see data. I need to be able to see numbers that are going to grab my attention and stick out to me.
Yeah, so numbers is the biggest thing that sticks out to you when looking at a resume. That was my next question.
Well, that's a great. So that will pique my interest, like improve or decrease, like those kind of keywords. When you apply to a job, there's some people that are like, don't make a resume for every job. I personally am the opposite of that. I think you should make a resume for every job because
Mhm.
it's a little bit different, but there's going to be keywords. If you're reading a job description, the more words are in a job description, right? If Excel is in the job description a lot, Microsoft Excel, or hey, we need you to build relationships with high level leaders, anything like that. You want to emphasize that multiple times in your resume that, while on a deployment, you built relationships with high level military leaders, both in, you know, uh, if it was American forces, multi-nation forces, all those things, you want to grab numbers in that. So I can see this person led a team, if you're company commander, 120 soldiers through this deployment, putting
Mhm.
numbers and data, and then it's boom. So not just me as the recruiter sees it because I'm thinking next level. Now my hiring manager is going to see it on that paper.
Okay. Are there any myths that you still see a lot of service members having about the civilian market?
That's a great question. I think there's quite a few, right? I think the first one, I know myself, I was out when I learned this. Sometimes veterans, I think there's a misconception that like it can harm you if you put on there that you're a veteran.
Mhm.
It's actually, it's a good thing to be a veteran. It helps kind of most companies have veteran hiring initiatives and
Mhm.
goals that they're trying to achieve. So you want to hit that. And then, whatever, challenges you have, you want to, I, I require a standing desk. So like I can put that on my application. And again, that's a disability requirement. So I think that's a misconception. Or like if I put on there that, I have a disability or this or that, like, no, it's not going to harm you. Um,
Okay.
so I think that would be a big one. And there's just so many others, right? Eh, Over 70, or excuse me, over 60% of veterans, if you look at the numbers, over 60% of veterans feel underemployed. Um, when they get out, sometimes for years at a time. But then conversely, so that sounds like a lot, but then conversely, 70% of civilians feel like they're underutilized in their current job. So another one would be like, hey, we're not alone. Well, every veteran I talk to are like, hey, I applied to a lot of jobs, I'm not getting responses. I'm like,
Mhm.
that is the market right now. It's tough.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you recommend for those people who are, a lot of people on this call are struggling that with that right now. You have any tips or tricks?
Right. I love that word trick, right?
Yeah.
My one of the things going back to that compliance piece where it's like okay to put on there that you're a veteran and if you have any kind of certain disability under those checks you want to make sure to check that is uh, because of that compliance piece a lot of companies have things set in place when you're applying to jobs that um, they have certain rules and regulations policies that they're following with
Mhm.
applications. One of the simplest ones is the first one to apply. So if I post a job on Monday and someone applies on Monday, I'm I'm looking in the order they apply. So if someone applies on a Tuesday, I might not get to their resume based off the people that applied on Monday. So all that being said, like when you're looking at jobs, try to be one of the first ones to apply. That's the quickest tip I can tell you right off the bat, right? Because if you get 50 applications, I'm going to go through the first, and let's say we want to, my hire manager is like, I want to screen 10 and then go from there, or screen five and I want to go from there. The first five that I get screened, I'm on hold and not reaching out to anyone else until we handle those first five, if that makes sense. And
Okay.
then, yeah, so there's that. And what happens a lot of times, and I get it, is I will get messages from people on LinkedIn that are like, hey, I saw this opportunity with your company. Can you tell me more about it? Some of us don't even respond to those messages in the recruiting world, but my number one thing and the response you're probably going to get most often from the recruiters is have you replied yet? So before it's great that you're reaching out, but apply to the job before you reach out because that's going to be their first response.
Mhm.
Um, and don't just reach out to recruiters. This is a great time again while you're going through this transition to get to know the company and the people there. If you can find another veteran or someone that you can make another connection with on LinkedIn and just say like, hey, I see you're being successful or you're doing well in this role. I'd love to take a few minutes to learn about what you're doing there, what you think about the culture and environment. So that way, or you start to get a little bit more information and you get to know someone there.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Over here we talk a lot about kind of standing out. Like we said earlier, as a recruiter, would something like a veteran maybe sending an email after an interview or sending a video thanking you, would something like that make a difference?
Yeah, I will. You'd be really surprised as, I've been doing this for 13 years and I I don't I can't. It's really strange how few follow-up emails I get.
Really?
And not just a thank you email, but this is an opportunity again for you to resell yourself, right? If you and I interview and we talk, hey, tell me about a time when, and because I'm like, hey, this role is going to require a lot of, you know, strategy and engagement. This is another opportunity to drive home your ability to lead strategy and engagement.
Okay.
So,
How would we do that without being like too forward? Like sending me an email, hey, thanks for your time. I also did this. Like,
well,
what would
no,
be the
right? We
right
want
way
to say
to?
like, well, now you're confirming to me that you really did pay attention to the interview and really
Mhm.
were engaged in it. And it's again your opportunity. Like, hey, we discussed that. It's what I took away from the interview. You're really looking for someone that's focused on strategy and engagement. Well, I want to reemphasize, my ability to do this, and when I really had success doing this in this, in a prior role or something that you had. Now you're just reiterating, which doesn't come pushy. Um, you know, it just gives us an opportunity for you to be able to reiterate that to us.
Okay. I'm glad I asked that because I don't know about anybody else in here, but to me, some of that stuff seems like I would be a little too forward, but it is more normal than I think it is. So I'm glad you answered like
Well, and
that.
that's what I say. Like interviewing is a competition. I think one of our challenges, another one for us as veterans, is we're used to laid out promotion plans, whether you're an officer, whether you're enlisted. If you come in and you behave yourself and you keep your head above water and you're doing okay, you're going to get promoted at least to this rank in these timelines.
Yep.
And we go in front of a boards, whether it's in front of them or actually a packet, and maybe 1,000 people go in front of that packet, and maybe 50% of those people get promoted. A lot of times when you're interviewing for a job, one person is getting hired.
Mhm.
So if you're 98, you, what can you do to make yourself a 99? Or maybe you were a 98, but we actually found somebody that was a 99 and we're going to go with a 99. So anything you can do to push yourself further and make yourself look better doesn't hurt. And again, if you're the kind of person that likes to send follow up emails and it rubs the people at that company the wrong way, maybe that's not the company for you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
stay true to yourself during the process because you want to be somewhere where you're going to want to be and you're going to be engaged and empowered.
Okay. Okay. I've heard that if you apply to maybe that doesn't apply to all companies, but if you apply to a company and then you apply again, it's a better chance of getting seen because you're already in their system. Is that a myth or is that accurate?
You know what? Yes and no, right? I didn't know. Again, we're talking a long time ago. I didn't know like what an applicant tracking system is. So you may hear recruiters or you've
Mhm.
probably had somebody on these calls that say applicant tracking system. So companies have applicant tracking systems when you're applying, and most of the time I can see your other applications in them. Now, right, if you're applying to be a customer service rep, but then you're also applying to be an accountant, and then you're also like, I'm gonna be like, does this person know what they want to do? So there's a fine line for that. But I've never like, you know, if you get interviewed, maybe. All right, I think that's a great way to do it. If we can get you interviewed, so maybe I interview you, and you're not a fit for this particular job, but we have something else that can help. But I don't, you know, I can't think of a time that we looked at a candidate because they were already in the ATS. We just don't want you applying to like 7 jobs and they're all like very different
Oh, okay.
because, right? And again, that was me when I was getting out because again, being a veteran and like
Mhm.
how the military operates, I was like, all right, I'm an infantry, airborne infantry combat leader, just got back from Afghanistan, and the Army thought it was a good idea. I became an instructor now. And then the Army was like, on after that, then they were like, you know what you're gonna go do now? Be a recruiter. And then when I was a recruiter, I was like the fire safety guy, I was the urinalysis guy, I was the sexual harassment guy. So I was like, I can do anything. So in my mind, when I was transitioning out, I was like, if Lowe's hires me, I can do anything Lowe's tells me to do. I can do HR. Lowe's just has to train me. I can do HR, or I can sell Christmas trees. Lowe's just needs to train me. Like I can operate a forklift. Lowe's just needs to train me. And this is where yet another major difference in the big challenges transitioning from the military to the civilian world is the military in no way is operated like a business. It's not about revenue. It's not about money. It's very different mission. Where in the civilian world, I don't want to hire you to train you to drive a forklift. I need you to already know how to drive a forklift. If that made sense. So,
Mhm.
be careful. I'm not telling you not to apply to jobs, just be careful and mindful when you're applying to companies for multiple roles.
Yeah, it's funny that you brought that up because just in our last mentor session that was just finishing when you came in, we talked about how being the jack of all trades is not necessarily a good thing on the outside. So it's just funny that you harped on that again about how important that is. Because,
Now, right, the right company, if I hire you to do, if you let a lot of you, some people, hey, getting the HR certification, IT, whatever, we'll bring you in for the job that you're qualified for. And then once you prove yourself and you've been there a little while, we're more than willing to invest in you to go do additional things. But again, like we're not looking to hire someone to be a forklift operator who doesn't know how to operate a forklift. And part of that too is you're competing against people that have forklift certifications, are already operating forklifts, or already in IT, all those things.
yeah. So what do veterans do to stick out if they're already competing against these people with corporate experience or I've seen a lot of DOT experience that we just don't have. What do we do
That,
to stick out from them?
that's a great question. Again, right? Even on the civilian side, I tell people when you're looking for a job, that is your job, right? So again, getting as much as you can know about that company and working on that resume. Again, looking at the job descriptions. If you're connected to people at that particular company, reaching out to them and saying, "Hey, how can I get my resume in in front of someone? What are key things I can have in that?" Um, Again, going back to that data and that information, and kind of putting yourself and being mindful and putting yourself in someone else's shoes. If I was a recruiter that was
Mhm.
looking at this resume, how can I grab their attention in 5 to 7 minutes? Um, and then also, yeah, referrals, building your network now, to help you in the future. Everyone always says it's all about, um, you know, who you know. I don't agree with that per se. I prefer more. It's about who knows you, getting your name, your brand out there more. Referrals is a great way to get in front of people that, if I've always, no matter how busy I am or anything, it doesn't matter who it is, if someone ever reached out to me that was at a company that I worked at and they were like, hey, this person may not be qualified for this job or whatever, especially if it was a veteran, they were like, can you take a look at this resume? Tell me what you think. So again, trying to get your foot in through contacts at a company. And again, don't if you're reaching out to a lot of people and you're like, hey, can you help me get a job here? Maybe not. But if you're like really interested in your path, looks like you've been successful there. I'd love to connect and learn about how you got there, what it's been like for you. What would you recommend? Then, once you get that, you break that ice, then you can start talking about, well, how can I get there? Do you think I would be a fit? Things like that.
Yeah, yeah. What are some other ways to build those relationships?
Networking, these events right here are great, right?
Yeah.
Getting to know, uh, getting to know, building your network. That's what I did, and most of the jobs since I've been out has that I've been able to get has, someone knew me or met me through a networking thing. Um, so just staying consistent with that. Um, there,
Okay.
the analogy I always use, right, is there's going to be days where you get up and you're like you mentioned before, like I'm not getting responses, no one's responding to me.
Hmm.
Like there's going to be days where you want to get up and you're like, I don't want to do it. And that's fine. Don't do it because the person that did get up today and do it is going to be the person that gets hired at the job you wanted and you just didn't apply to today.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You're not going to get anything if you don't go out there and try.
Yeah.
Do you
And
see any? Oh, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, right. And I constantly, even me, right. Like I think about it when I'm talking to veterans and things. It's one thing to say 60% of us, again, don't feel like we're where we need to be right now, which is how it kind of, it's that path. Like you have to keep that in the back of your mind. Like 60% essentially means it would take three of us to feel like one of us is okay because, you
Mm.
know, 60%, I'm not great at math, but I don't know how to calculate that, but it means like essentially one out of three of us is happy. So like that, and I don't say that that doesn't mean your happiness won't come. It's probably just going to take some time. And one thing I always tell people is listen, this doesn't get easier, you get better, right? We've
Mm.
all been in the military, so we've done something that we never did before.
Mhm.
The physical activity, the mental activity, like push-ups didn't get easier, we got stronger. Like a mile, 2 miles didn't get shorter, we got faster. So it's all about getting better.
Yeah. Somebody in the chat, they asked, if you have an interview scheduled, do you recommend reaching out to the recruiter beforehand, saying that you're looking forward to the interview?
It's not going to hurt, I don't think, right? When it comes to the interview, it go, the you can't. Some people might tell you you can practice an interview too much. I don't know. That's all I did when I got out. Like I was being in the shower, and my ex-wife would be like, "What are you doing?" And I'd be like, I'm interviewing myself, right? But like you just constantly want to be prepared. But the interview itself is your opportunity. And this is what we, and right, again, this is where I ask all of us to be situational, right? There's 65 of us on a call, right? Like 65 of us want jobs, 65 of us want this, 65 of us want that. Like, so always understand that, like, we all 65 of us, right? Every time we apply a job, what do we all say to ourselves? If I could just get in front of someone, if I could just interview. So when you get that interview, that needs to be your thing. You need to do that. And so my advice when it comes to interviews is, right, we all know first impressions. Your about you story needs to be on lock. And about when we talk about you, I can look at your resume and kind of know, and my hiring managers are going to know about your past. I want to know how well you can speak that. But also, when you're telling me about me, this is your opportunity to say, like, hey, I'm looking to find a good job. You can even say, like, hey, I'd love to work here, and be successful. But then you can say things like, what's on your agenda now? Right now, I'm kind of in a phase where I don't know if I'm going to go get an AI certification, if I'm going to go to the Bush administration, and then or the Bush leadership. I don't know if I'm going to put that application in or go and get my MBA. I'm kind of, but like if I was to interview right now, that would be, blah 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 blah. What's next on my agenda is this and this, and whatever aligns in my immediate future. One of those three things is where I'm
Yeah.
going. But yeah, if you can lock down your quick intro about me story, and again, understand the company and the job that you're applying for and use that to sell yourself to that particular job. And then when you are in interviews, I'm sure you guys have heard this before, the STAR format, they may not ask you a behavioral based question. Tell me about a time when you overcame an obstacle, you dealt with a difficult customer, you dealt with this, or this. Even if they don't ask you a behavioral based question, which that is, you use STAR, which is situation, task, action, and result. Tell me what the situation was. Tell me what the task was. What was your action and what was your result to those questions? And you'll be okay in an interview.
Yeah. Going back to the about you, we talk a lot about those. Could you give us like a top three tips on that? Like maybe like the length it should be or what it shouldn't include. Maybe just like a three quick tips on either what to do or what not to do with that.
Three quick tips. Number one, and I tell everyone this when I've had people under me, when other people that are presenting, even myself, I have to remind myself. Time goes like slow down. And then when you think you're going too slow, probably slow down a little bit more because I veterans, we attack everything with so much passion and
Mhm.
so much vigor because of that's the environment we're in. But we also are just so like, I want to do great. And we have so much motivation. So I'm like, hey, not that it's intimidating or whatever, but give yourself like allow your mind to keep up with your mouth, if that makes sense. Like we'll talk so fast that like we'll lose ourselves. So the slowing down a little bit, you and I are gonna feel like as we talk, we're gonna feel like we're talking slow, but in reality we're not, and it's easier for that person to follow us.
Okay.
An exercise I have done, if you go into like LinkedIn Learning, you can do you can speed up the time. And I have played it on like 1.5, one, and then point like seven or whatever to people, and most people can't tell the difference. They're like it was the same speed. So just keep that in the back of your mind. And then this is an opportunity again to celebrate your successes. Again, like the quick hey about me, like I assumed that was going to happen, but it wasn't like I prepared for it for an interview. But I'm like, hey, I was a top Army recruiter 4 years in a row in a Marine Corps town, and I got selected above my peers without having to do any of the training or any of the schooling. I became, the largest station in the region, station commander. Like, oh wow, that's cool. So like, you know, so data and numbers and anything that you can drive home quickly. Um, and kind of going back to that first point, like 2 minutes might not sound like a lot when you say it, but go do an about me for 2 minutes. That's a lot of time to be able to put a lot of information, especially if you're hitting important numbers and data. I don't care that like you played basketball 20 years ago in high school. Oh my gosh, over 25, never mind. But I'm talking about myself, but like what really matters and what's going to resonate with me. So post interviews, I can say, this person said this person said this person said this, which really resonates and is important for us.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate it because we go over those a bunch. So I wanted to ask that. Do you see what are some top transferable skills that you see in a lot of veterans? Are there similar ones that you see recurring?
That's a great question. Top ones that I see recurring, right? Again, mission oriented,
Mhm.
able to overcome obstacles.
Mhm.
You know, teamwork is that big one. Collaboration is really big, and that's really important. Um, as we move in this tough economy, because it's not just about effectiveness and efficiency, because the companies are kind of going away from, which is tough for veterans because we're all told to go be project managers. But if you notice, companies are kind of going away from just having PMs. And now what they'll do is they'll have like continuous improvement teams. So maybe you're in HR, maybe you're in engineering, maybe you're in sales, but on the side of your desk, you'll be part of our continuous improvement team. So I need to see that you're going to be able to collaborate across multiple teams. So that would be one um, great skill that, again, as veterans, we do, whether it's wherever you're stationed, whatever command you're in. Excuse me, if you're overseas and you're working across multiple cultures and nations, that collaboration is a big piece. Excuse me, I need to be able to see that you
Yeah.
can collaborate with our teams, with partners, with customers, all kinds of things like that.
hmm Okay, I know all of us have those skills too. Every single veteran has them ingrained in them. So,
Yeah. And
um,
and I think like we learn it because we don't have a choice. Like you don't get to go and be like, well, I'm not working with that person. Like, no, you don't get to do that. Like, and which is great, right? It teaches us those skills, and you'll see it in this, and that's what's tough in the civilian world. You'll see things that you're like, we didn't do that in the military. And you're like, well, so yeah, but it's a great skill to have.
yeah, we learned with our last mentor that there's quite a few things that are different in the work ethic and the culture in the civilian
Yeah,
world versus the military.
and and it that's a tough culture shock, but hey, it's okay. And just keep your head down. Like, it's just different, but it's okay, and it'll make you an asset down the line.
Yeah, 100%. It'll make us stick out and exceed faster than other people might.
Yeah,
Talking a little more specifically about service to software, you guys focus on sales. Why is tech sales such a strong fit for veterans, do you think?
that's a great question. Number one, right off the bat, you know, anybody know anything more secure than tech? Like, I don't know where technology is going, but it's not leaving. It's not going anywhere, really. So that's what drew me to it. Is that and I saw somebody put in their trades, but like trades uses tech. Like not that's what I'm saying. Like name something that doesn't use tech. Tech uses tech. Like AI uses AI. Like it's all amazing at the end of the day. And so right off the bat, like it's not going anywhere, and that's a great skill. But again, that organization, that individual drive, the overcoming, the obstacles. And tech sales is not, telemarketing. It's not knock, I know there's programs out there that are like, hey, you want to do door to door sales? It's not, individual retail. You're not calling somebody and asking if they come to AT&T, they get a cell phone. You're actually, you're working with business leaders, executives, managers at companies, and you're offering them solutions to be more effective and efficient.
hmm
And how you do that is you have to identify their challenges. Our business really struggles with X. Well, hey, our software program, this tech program, is able to alleviate that and again make you more effective and efficient in a time where companies are trying everything they can do right now to be the most effective and efficient companies out there. So taking those skills and being able to expand upon those, because we have the core competencies in our program trains and coaches develop it more on the business side, but being able to understand those challenges and helping partner companies overcomes those obstacles, just like we talked about collaboration in the military, is why veterans do really well.
Mhm. You brought up your guys' program. Talking specifically about your program, what does whether it's a normal fellow or a skill bridger, what do they learn? Or what does that
Um,
program look like?
so right, great. So we have two training programs or platforms that we use that are costly in the civilian world, but through our Skill Bridge program, you would have free access to. There's the John Barrows platform, which is really thought sought after in the civilian world. It's donated to us as a nonprofit, and our fellows have access to it. And then there's also the Pavilion platform, and
Mhm.
those are training, coaching libraries that will help you again fine tool the intangibles that you already have and the skills that you developed into being effective in that. And then we, like most programs, we're going to work with you on your resume and your interviews. You'll get interviews with partners, and then when you're doing your skill bridge at that partner company, again, I know it sounds tough, and you're like, well, what am I going to do once I get there? Again,
Mhm.
because the civilian world is different than the military. It costs them money. It costs them time to not like they want to train you. They want you to be successful because it's not good for them if you're not successful. So they're really bought in and motivated for you to do as well. In the
Okay.
military, we'll keep, hey, that young soldier, that young enlisted or officer, whatever, like, hey, they're not up to par, but like our expectation is to coach and train them. Like we're not, it's not a business. Where in the civilian world, they're really motivated to help you be successful as well. So our partners are bought into being that successful. One thing I always tell veterans, it doesn't matter what path you're going on or what you're looking to do, be mindful, every company that's out there wants to support the troops, right? Whether it's they know the numbers that veterans perform better, they stay long, the retention is better, or that they just want to do the right thing. Either way, everyone wants to support the troops. But there's a difference between being veteran friendly and then veteran ready. You need to really learn how to pull back and see if that company is veteran ready or veteran friendly. And then you need to know individually, do I need to be, what kind of company do I need to be at? What environment? Am I going to be okay at a company that doesn't have structure, doesn't have a support group for me or anything like that? Or am I someone that's going to need a lot of support in this time of transition? I believe most of us need that support and that tribe, if you will, of other veterans that have transitioned out.
Yeah. How does it, because I've seen a lot that some companies they'll represent the veteran friendly, and then it doesn't really end up being that way. What's a way to tell the difference between a company that's really going to be helpful to you as a veteran or one that's not gonna be?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? So again, I worked for US Foods, and I'll tell you that I loved it there. That was a really great, friendly veteran environment. And how you can tell is follow them on LinkedIn, look at the activity that they're doing on LinkedIn. They celebrate their veterans, they celebrate those that they have in the skill bridge. They celebrate, they're big on Veterans Day. They have what every company calls them a little bit different. But they called it, I believe, at that time an ERG, which is an employment readiness group, I think. And I want to say for those who serve, but again, it wasn't just veterans, but it was, those who wanted to help and had either ties to the military community or wanted to be a part of that. And that was great. When you're interviewing, ask about that. Do you have a mentorship program? Do you have an ERG? Look at their career sites. Some companies, if they have a really robust military site or they talk about their ERG on the site, that's a positive sign. Some of these companies are winning awards.
Mhm.
Look at that, right? If they've won awards, that's a great thing. But kind of going back full circle, that's a great icebreaker, right? Hey, you know, Jane Doe at this company. I'm AJ, and I noticed we both were recruiters in the Army, and I've always been interested in this company. Can you tell me about your experience there? That goes back to what we talked about before, building your network,
Yeah.
you know? And then next thing you know, you and that person know some things, and next thing you know, hey, there's an opening here. Would you be interested? Or, hey, I saw this opening. Can you tell me more about that? How can I get in front of a recruiter? so it goes back to that networking piece too as well.
Okay. Yeah. I feel like everything leads back to networking. Any question I ever had, I can just answer it with networking.
Yeah, right. And I know everyone like rolls their eyes, like, man, I thought which I appreciate, but you were very loose with the term. I can't even, I think you said expert or something. I don't know in the beginning. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But like, I come on and they're like, hey, what's the secret? And I'm like, well, networking helps. And you guys are like, can someone not use that word? I'm like, I don't know. Talking to people, I don't like, and that's where I go back to where I'm like, hey, it's frustrating and it's not the fun part for a lot of us, but like, this is our time to be doing that. And then
Mhm.
what'll happen is in a couple of years when you're successful and you're on your path, now it's your time to pay it back. Like someone's going to be reaching out to you when you're at this company and you're doing well. Someone's going to be reaching out to you just like you were reaching out to people.
Yeah, absolutely. It will all come full circle eventually. We'll all be super successful at some company one day.
Yeah. Right.
You brought back up you worked at some pretty big companies like US Food and Black Rifle Coffee. Is there a major difference at working in a big company like that versus working in a nonprofit in the space you work in now?
Yeah. Right. I mean, big companies, culture, there's some things to take into account there. When you're at a
Mm-hmm.
bigger company, sometimes, multiple people have to be involved, which again, this goes back to you as that individual and kind of really getting to know yourself and the company culture, right? At a big company, sometimes it takes, while you'll have a lot of support, sometimes you may have to like get a lot of people on board, a lot of people bought in, a lot more collaboration. Um, where at a smaller company, maybe you're going to get a chance to wear multiple hats, or, there may not need to be a lot of collaboration or like, okay, let's do this and go. That can happen. Another thing that I didn't really know a lot about and take into consideration even a little bit after I got out is sometimes there's publicly traded companies, which means essentially stocks, and you have investors, right? Then there's companies that are privately owned. Like that's another thing to take into account because if you're a publicly traded company and you have shareholders that you need to please, like money is going to be a big thing of every decision that you make, right? Where if it's a privately owned company, maybe they're going to be like, hey, does this fit who we are and what we want to be? Um, sometimes that goes into it. There's just a lot that goes into it. And one of the things, whether again, veterans, civilians, anyone, I tell people it may feel a little bit intimidating, but always interview the company that is interviewing you. Now, I'm not asking you to like be rude or whatever, but this is a great way, again, when we talked about interviews, like have some questions, have follow up questions. At the end, they're going to like, that kind of help you dig into what that culture is like. What's it like, right? And it can be as simple as be like, hey, what do you like about working here? Or, you've been here for a while. Walk me through your success path and, what has made you successful here. Things like that is a great time for you to be like, all right, is this somewhere where I want to be?
Yeah, absolutely. I asked because a lot of people in here, not wrong, but a lot of people are going for those big defense industries just because we were in the military. That's what everyone goes for. We're comfortable with the defense industry. So, and a lot of people are looking over these thousands of smaller companies that they might just be just as happy as. So I kind of wanted to highlight your experience at both.
And there's big companies again because we're all used to that defense contracting world and and military environment. So we know about all those, but there's just as big, if not bigger, companies out there, that like have nothing to do with that, and they're huge, right? There's an amazing company based in New York, but they have a contingent here in Charlotte called Hearst, and they're huge. If you look them up, they're privately owned, and they have over 360 businesses, that from television to health to investments to many other things. Like, so there's a lot you can learn about companies outside of that space. And I think again, this goes back to that project management. Like we all think we're going to be great project managers when we get out because that's kind of what goes through the military. But I always tell people too that are like, well, I want to work for Black Rifle, and I'm like, you and every other veteran that's out now and is transitioning now, and going back to the defense contractors. Well, I want to work for Boeing or I want to Raytheon or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, you and the other 200,000 veterans that are getting out this year, and the veterans that are already out, and the veterans that will be getting out, like everybody wants to work there that has a military. Like, and I'm not discouraging anyone from trying it. I'm like, just know that. Again, it goes back into being mindful of other people. Like, the
Mhm.
competition piece of it and how everybody else wants to do what you're doing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a tough game out there. I just have one last question. If anybody else has any questions, raise your hand in my while I'm asking. But I wanted to ask, how do people get in touch with you if they want to contact you or know more about your guys' SkillBridge program? And if you have
Absolutely.
any final encouraging words for everybody in here, I'd love to hear them.
Uh, yeah, that's great. I mean, so LinkedIn, I can throw it in the chat is the best. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn all day, every day, all day. And I love questions. You know, I think this goes back to that piece you mentioned in the beginning. It's individualized, right? 200,000 of us, over 200,000 veterans get out every year. That means there's over 200,000 different experiences in different circumstances, and like, you know, this is the this is why you should be asking questions and engaging. There's probably And one thing I've always said, even as a leader, is I'm like, don't be afraid to ask a question, because if you have it, more than likely somebody else has that question, or it might be something that someone else never thought of,
Yeah.
right? Like, ask Matt. I have never once thought about interview. Maybe I have. I just don't remember. I haven't interviewed in a while, but like interviewing sending a email prior to a recruiter and being like, hey, I'm really excited to connect. Like, if we had set it up over email or whatever, be like, hey, great, looking forward to connecting you on Tuesday is one thing, but can't recall if I ever thought about reaching out to a recruiter and be like, hey, just want to let you know I'm super excited to talk Tuesday. Like, but now, like, hey, nothing wrong with that. But you asking that question, you know, keeps the ball rolling of momentum there for conversation. And then, as far as words of encouragement, everyone that has known me more than 5 minutes is my thing to always say is, hey, it doesn't get easier, you get better. Like, this transition is not going to get easier for you. You're going to get better at it. You're going to meet people. You're going to ask questions. You're going to network. Then you're going to get a chance. You're going to get experience that's going to go back to making you get better. And then you're going to be able to come back and talk to veterans and be like, hey, this is what I learned from my transition. Don't make this mistake.
Yeah, 100%. It all goes back to that paying it forward, like you said earlier.
Yeah, absolutely.
But thanks so much for coming on, AJ. It was a pleasure. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to come chat with us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody don't hesitate to reach out. I've got a pretty large network on LinkedIn. I always love to stay connected. And as I mentioned before, another, I guess, final thought would be is it's not so much who you know, it's who knows you. So you
Mhm.
want to build that network as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, AJ. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate